Welcome, everybody, to the next episode of Leadership in the Trenches. Look at this crew. Look at this group of people I have with me. You guys are very lucky to be watching this webinar. Amazing folks. We have Jill Pascuzzi, the Vice President of Sales from Brand Boulevard. Say hi, Jill. Give her a hug.
Hi.
We have Len Stolk, who is the President and third generation owner of Stolk Construction. Very proud of that, third generation. And we have Susan Chatland, who is the Senior Human Resources Strategic Partner for Facility Services at McMaster University. That is a big business card, Susan.
Yeah.
And I'm proud that I got through it without stumbling. So that was very good.
Thank you. Thank
Welcome,
you.
all of you. And Len, I should mention that you're now bringing in the fourth generation of your family into the business. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. He just graduated from university and started with us in May. Kind of part-time with also working at an engineering firm to get his Eng, but getting a chance to see design right through to construction. So
Awesome.
good
That's
experience.
fantastic. Fourth generation. I love stories like that. Makes me so excited. All right. So, Jill, let's start with you. The
Mhm.
first question is, right now, leaders are facing new challenges than they did even 5, 10 years ago. What are you seeing? Because you have a diverse age range of leaders at your team as well. What are you seeing with your
Mhm.
group?
Yeah, we're just seeing that over the last couple of years, there's just been a lot of changes, one in our industry and in the world in general, right? So there's a lot of things that are happening in terms of like uncertainty,
Mhm.
which causes like a little bit, I don't want to say panic, but it causes uncertainty with the team. So it's new challenges that they're having now to be able to navigate some of those changes and to ease people's minds a little bit. And because of the changes that are happening around us, that includes a lot of changes that are happening here, right? We've recently gone through and there's been major leadership changes. We've hired a bunch of people on like the executive level, and the sometimes that causes uncertainty. So now the leadership team that we have right now, is need to be adaptable and be those change agents and like really communicate with their teams, and I communicate with our team on like the why these things are happening, right? Like we have these things happening in the world. We need to adjust, right? I don't know what the saying is, and I'm probably going to butcher the saying, but it's like you're either changing or you're evolving or you're dead, right? Like it's just you have to keep up with that. And I think that's happening more so now than it has ever been in the last few years.
Great point. A change is never ending, right? And the thing is, I when I talk to people in some of my classes, it's, well, people fear change. It's, well, they don't fear change because we love new music, new food, new movies, new clothing, new vacations. What we don't like is fear that, or a change that
Yeah.
we feel is forced on us, right? And like you said, you mentioned the why. Len, what are you seeing with your group? Because you also have of diverse ages, but you also have multiple locations because you guys are in construction, so you're all over the place geography wise. So what are you seeing?
Yeah, I would echo, a lot of what Jill said, but also, I think we're asking more of our leaders now than, in the past. There's a big demand on their time, and we're asking them really to, do things that maybe we didn't ask them to do in the past. They're being, mentors and teachers, and a lot you're having to do a lot more than just their job. It's just because there's new people coming in, there's new skill sets coming in, but they don't necessarily have all the experience that our leaders have. And so, they really have to pass on that knowledge. And in the past, it seemed, you know, like going quite a bit farther back, you had a larger pool of people to draw from, and the skill sets were, you know, more transferable, I guess,
Yeah.
at that time. But now it's thinner, and so you're really relying on them to, step up and hold the fort while doing their job. So I think it's taxing. It can lead to burnout and tougher situations. So you really have to keep an eye on that and make sure we're not going down that road to pushing them too far.
Right. Like the days are gone of the managing manager. It's now the working manager. I mean, all the
Yeah,
way up to the president level, right, Len? Like you're the president, but you still have duties to complete
For sure.
that are work related, not just management related, right? So that's the working managers everywhere now, they're right.
yeah, I will also say too, like from a sales perspective, we have teams now, like sales teams, and a lot of the leaders on those teams is a player coach model. And that's what they call them, is like they're a player, they're in the game, they're actively selling, but they also lead a team that's there to support them and help grow, the book of business that that team owns. And I think we're seeing a lot more of that kind of like player coach model. And to Len's point, it's hard to have that balance of like, where do I prioritize a little bit? So helping our leaders kind of figure that out in their calendars and their time management and just kind of put that thought behind it of like, how much time should I spend where? I agree with Len. That is one of the challenges that some of our leaders face today.
Great point. Susan, you have a unique perspective because you like to work with giant organizations like McMaster University and Book Depot and whatnot. So what are you seeing? Because it's a different world with some of the bigger corporate arenas you're in.
Yeah, and I would say honestly, I feel the challenges are super similar. I agree with both Len and Jill too. For us too, it's this uncertainty in the market that's creating a lot of challenge and things around just inflation and financial constraints, but wage pressure and people are needing more, and this is one of their basic needs, right? Around things that are happening. So I sort of echo all of those comments. There's also this whole piece around the AI and how is that going to impact people? And that's creating this level of instability as well. And so that's a big concern as well. And post COVID, there's still a lot of wellness challenges, right? And a lot of burnout and a lot of things that show up. So I'm in agreement. I think leaders earn every penny today.
Mhm.
And so for us too, in some of our leaders, I mean, we're trying to go like, how do we work smarter? How do we be really good at the workforce planning piece and not not necessarily working with less people, but just again looking how do we streamline things? How do we find efficiencies in the models and the process? In this environment too, which is a little unique. I mean, we've talked about succession planning for ages, but this is the first environment where we're seeing in our facility services team a lot of upcoming retirement and a lot of retirement. And we know a lot of our baby boomers exited around COVID as well, but there's this like, continuous group that are also looking to retire and are waiting for the right time. And so for us, the leaders are also going, okay, how do we make sure that we've got really strong process, that this tribal knowledge is also documented, that we've got people up and coming that are being mentored by a group that are going to be leaving. And a lot of the operation here in which I support is our trades group too. And so thinking
Right.
about, how do we have this great pipeline of folks coming in when we know there's a big focus today too to have more people sign up for the trade. So we're seeing it at all levels, from our senior leaders who are ready for retirement to some of our trades that are ready to retire. And so how are we sharing and passing on this knowledge? How are we managing through this unknown? Um, and how are we taking care of ourselves as leaders at the same time? Because that's really
Right.
important. And I think a lot of the aspirational leaders that I follow and that I learn from are also looking inward too, to go, this is a hard time, and what's my own self-care plan,
Right.
which I think is really important.
So Len, we'll jump over to you. So you you do a lot of promoting from within people that have worked on your workforce and move up, and then you've also brought in some outside leaders. What are the main characteristics you're looking for someone to become a leader in your organization right now? What are the things you really want to see that's sort of a deal breaker for you if they don't have that?
Yeah, well, you know, sometimes the challenge is, you need people into leadership roles, and you're trying to maybe, push a round peg into a square hole, and you're maybe more enthusiastic about moving someone along than they are. So
Yeah.
I think really what you have to do is look at their level, their level of commitment, their initiative. You want to give them, I think, an environment and an opportunity, but I really like to see somebody take initiative, because I don't want a reluctant leader, because that that probably is going to cause stress, and it's not going to have the best outcome for that person or the company. So it's really, I look for initiative. I think that's probably one of the key traits that I like to see in people. And I mean, obviously there also has to be a cultural match between that person and the company. I mean, there are good people and smart people and people with a lot of initiative, but they may not match your environment and your company. So, there really it has to dovetail and come together. So, you know, looking for that, and creating those opportunities where you can kind of see the person, and they can see the company,
Yeah.
so it's a bit of a dating process, I guess, before you fully commit to it.
That's a great point. And I love the word initiative because I'm a big believer that leadership isn't attached to your title, it's attached to your actions. So anybody in the organization can have a leadership mentality or mindset or whatever you want to call it. And so I think what you're getting at, Len, is when you see someone not waiting to be told all the time, or is coming forward with ideas, or is trying to encourage others, you view that as, wow, this person has a sense of this place is bigger than them. They want to be part of it. So they may be interested in leadership. But some people confuse management and leadership because they're not always the same thing. But I love that word initiative. That's a great word.
Mhm.
Susan, what are you, again, with future leaders? So you said your boomers are retiring. I'm a Gen X, so I'm being forced to work until I die. That's what I'm told. I don't know if that's true, um, but
Oh.
but so we have people retiring, and then we have folks coming up, and then we have sort of this middle ground. But I'm also seeing that some, especially Gen Z, are like, I don't know if I want leadership because you guys look really stressed out. I don't know if I
Yeah.
want to be part of that. So, Susan, what are you seeing with some of this?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're seeing the same thing of leaders, and looking for leaders who are more confident as well, and confident in that gray area, and resilient, and able to work with others. For me, I feel like, um, I think leaders too need to also look out there and go in times of change and a bit of chaos and whatnot from some of the external factors. Who are the people that are showing up every day, and who are the people that are still coming in and trying to do great work, and just focusing on them as well, and focusing on growing them. Who are your champions of some of these things, and the need to be super agile in this kind of environment. I also love the piece that you said earlier about the purpose, and just kind of like, we have to also be able to lean into the purpose and understand from our people what is motivating them and what is getting them excited to show up to work every day. And in the hardest times too, it's about being kind of grounded in our values, and just making sure as leaders too that we kind of lead by example, and we create safe
Yeah.
space for people when they're having a hard day, and we try and build the trust piece too, and we go, and we're sometimes vulnerable to say, you know it is okay to not have clarity on this. We're working together on this, like, how do we get through this
Yeah.
together? And just that sense of belonging and keeping lines of communication open. I think that's a really important piece. But
Yeah.
yeah, some people are, and some people are thinking today, like, maybe I'll go back to a different position, or maybe leadership's not for me. And it's continuing just to make sure our leaders feel that they're super supported as well, and they're not alone. And, helping to guide and support them as well.
Thank you. That's a
Yeah.
great answer. Jill, along the same lines of, you have Brand's been famous over the years for having this really young, dynamic
Yeah.
culture. But guess what? We all get a little bit older. But you still have a diverse group of leaders in there. So what are you looking
Yeah.
for today as you're adding people to your team? What are you hoping to bring to that group?
Yeah, I think there's kind of three things that I look for in our kind of growth plan and building up our leaders. One of them is having like high emotional intelligence and empathy, especially with having like a younger workforce. I feel like that's more important than ever to be able to make sure that people feel heard, that their opinions are valid, that their feelings are valid, that we hear you, we understand, we recognize it, and here are ways that we're going to help work through it or provide solutions for it. I think now that's more important than ever, and that's one of the things that we really look for in our leadership team is, that empathy and that emotional intelligence. The other thing that I look for is charisma, right?
Yeah.
And I think charisma is, a kind of wonderful blend between are you capable and are you trustworthy, right? And I think those are two really important characteristics. Can they do what they need to do to lead this team? And can their team trust them to do it? I think you have that those two kind of like buy-ins from your team, that makes a great leader, right? And having that energy and that presence around them, that there's no ego, there's no defensiveness. It is just, they're capable and they're trustworthy to get the job done. And I think that is so important in looking for leaders today.
Excellent. Fantastic. So, Susan, we'll go to you with this. You mentioned culture.
Mhm.
That's always the magic word because no one can ever define it, but it's also incredibly important. We all agree it's important. We just don't know what it is or how to put a word to it. But well, we know when it's wrong, though. We know when
Oh
our
yeah.
culture is wrong. So, what is the effect you're finding on leaders today on culture? Are you finding that it's completely driven by the leader, or is it more of a meld of the whole unit of people involved? What are you seeing?
No, I mean, I think it's definitely a unit. It's all part of the unit. I still believe that leaders have a big influence on culture, right? And that they can create a safe space and they can create an environment. They have a big impact on their people, but it is absolutely a joint effort. It's everybody contributing to a culture. And so, again, one of the things that we've been doing to work on the culture here, it's a great culture, but, I think everyone always has an aspirational culture, what they're trying to evolve to. And for us too, it's again, it's about really defining our values and how we want to show up for one another and what is the culture that we want to create. And it's about introducing some really good listening strategies that we've been doing as well and making sure there's this strong two-way flow of communication. And that's where we're all in it together. Like people have to your point, they have to have a trust that they can share what's working and what's not working, and that this can come to leaders' attention, and there can be this open conversation about that, and that helps to build the culture as well, in terms of just great communication back and forth. So I mean, that's some of the things that we're doing here is just really defining our values, how they show up for us, how we lead through the values. We just had some training for leaders as well, and how we lead through the values and just work together to build a really good culture and have the values really guide that.
Thank you, Susan. That's great. Jill, so you like I mentioned before, Brand's famous for their culture, but you guys now
Mhm.
have an American division.
We do, yeah.
And so talk to me about how that world is affecting culture with your leaders.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Larry. One of the things that we wanted to make sure that we did when we announced that we're expanding to the US and we're hiring this team in the US is that team needs to be entrenched in our culture. So part of their onboarding process, we flew them all here and they were here for an entire week with us. So they got to live and breathe the day to day of what happens within these walls. at Brand Boulevard because that's where that culture lives, right? And the culture is seen in just like the little things that happen on a daily basis, right? It's the little conversations that people have. It is the seeing people work together to solve problems. It's not just, going to one person and that person needs to solve the problems, right? Like it's very much a team mentality. So it was really, really important for us to make sure that the team that we're hiring in the US is physically here and gets to know the people that work
Right.
here, see the environment that we work in, and how much time we put into our employees and being able to recognize them. So they were part of town halls, and in the town halls, we did a survey of keep, stop, start. We do that twice a year, and we address those head on on a leadership team in front of the entire company. And I think that
Right.
transparency and then showing them that like not only are we just going to get you to do this survey, right? We're actually taking everything that you guys are saying on this survey and then making strategic plans and action items and how we can address them and make them better. And I think that's important. And for the US team to see how that happens as well. We also have a lot of fun, and I think it's important, right? No one wants to, go to work every day and be miserable, right? Like, let's have fun. And that is a huge, like, my office, I have sprinkles in my office. I have a whole candy wall over here. Like it is meant to be a fun environment because who wants to get up and go to work and do that? So it is challenging from a remote team perspective to
Yeah.
be able to see that because they're physically not here every day. But we hope that we can, we're flying them in frequently just to be part of this culture because, like, that's what Brand Boulevard stands for. And our unique selling proposition, even with our clients or new hires or whatever it may be, is our people.
Right.
And that's so important. And we don't ever want that to be lost on anybody. So we really put that investment and that time in to our remote workers, like in the US, to come here and be part of it.
That's excellent. Jill, I remember once a few years past when I was working with your team, and everyone was kind of tense. It was a tense time of year, and someone said, "Hey, we're selling pens. We're not curing cancer. Let's all relax.
Let's
Let's have some
chill. Yeah.
fun, and let's just talk to our customers." And it was such a funny line, but it was true, and it
Hmm.
was excellent. Len, around culture, you have you know, f- coming in with the fourth generation, so that's going to impact your culture. You have a geographically diverse workforce that some of the guys don't come into the office very often. So do you ever find that there's sort of a field versus office mentality that can affect the culture? How do you work through some of those scenarios as it relates to maintaining a positive culture?
Well, absolutely. That will creep in, the field and office division. It, when you least expect it, it's, when they're not talking and they're not meeting, it just seems to grow organically apart. So, we really have to be, purposeful about being aware of that and taking action to kind of break that down. I mean, um, we have to bring the team in. We bring them in, at least every month and interact, even if it's just for a breakfast or something before, Monday morning, bring everybody together and then just talk about, what each group is doing so we can, everyone can see we're all, in the same boat, fighting the same fight and all on the same side. So um, when that doesn't happen, you can start to see cracks in the culture. And so, we've also taken, actions as far as, we hired an HR person that we never had really before in maybe the last couple of years and very purposeful about bringing these people along, even though they're not here all the time or hardly ever. And what can we do to break that down is, we do a weekly, I won't call it a newsletter, but it's more of an email that goes out and talks about all the wins that we've encountered as a team. So the field submits and they say, we accomplished this goal by the timeline, and people from the office talk about the same thing. So we can see that, across the board that we're all here, we're all working towards the same thing, but even though we don't necessarily interact all the time. So, it's really communication's the key, right? And keeping those lines open and not letting gaps in communication get filled with negative thought, I guess, is kind of a human thing to do, I guess, when
100%.
right.
I love, if I can just say one quick thing. I love the examples of just like building that community, right? And building those connections, and whether it's bringing people in from across the border or bringing people into the office. I mean, we're all on campus here because of the way that we serve the university, but being facility services, but there's still, I mean, we're dispersed across a massive campus. We're across 70 plus buildings that we're maintaining and we're cleaning and we're servicing. And so we're always looking for opportunities too of how do we come together and how do we have a bit more fun. And we just had training again, which I mentioned, where we're trying to mix up the groups, because there's something special about making connections that wouldn't naturally happen and having a bit of fun with that, but just the great synergy that comes from that as well. And we know as our teams work better together, we do better things, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so when we can be super collaborative and these natural connections are made, I mean, I think people just feel more excited about the work. They can learn from each other. They can troubleshoot together. It's really a special thing. And so I love the idea of bringing a US team down to see a culture that's working really well, but also just making sure that every effort is being put in place to bring people together, because there's something special about that face-to-face too, in that coming together. That I know some industries can do better with this flexible remote, but I still believe, a lot of us are coming back to the office and coming back to work because there's something special about how you can have those natural synergies, conversations if we're together.
Yeah, it's the little moments throughout the day, right?
Yes.
That help build and solidify the culture that you've tried to build. And sometimes that's hard to do from a remote perspective, right? So like I always say like I'm more productive at home, but I prefer to be in the office because like that's where that connection is being made with people and you get to see it and recognize it and be part of it. And there's something really special about that.
And like Len mentioned, you said you guys have breaking bread. What a great way to lower everybody's guard and realize. And Len, I quote you one time. I remember years ago you said we all have the same logo on our shirt. I was like, yeah.
Hopefully
It's
we
like
did those logos on your shirt. No.
you probably did. And it's like there's enough people to fight outside the walls, we don't need to fight inside the walls. That was a great point you made.
Yeah.
So, Jill, let's talk about developing leaders. Let's talk about specifically about young leaders. What are you doing as a company and as a VP to develop the young leaders in your organization?
Yeah, and like we have a lot of young leaders in our organization. The majority of our leaders have never led a team before. So this is all very new to them. So I think taking that time and the investment to invest in training and to invest in leadership training is immensely important. There's been a lot of feedback, Larry, with the courses that we've gone with you. There's been a lot of learnings that have happened, and people are implementing that in their day to day. And that is so important because they've never led before. And even me, like I've led multiple teams, but I can be reminded of some things. I need to learn new things as well, right?
Right.
So that's one of the things is investing in your leaders and taking them through leadership training on how to handle certain situations, how to have difficult conversations, how to gain trust, how to implement change and change management. Like there's so many things on a leadership level that if you've never done it before, you have no idea where to start.
Right.
The other thing that we're implementing is just getting to know our employees better. So we have surveys that we go out to every new hire, where we learn more about them personally, about their family, about how they like to be appreciated. We have how do they like to be motivated, right? Some people may be motivated monetarily. Some may not, right?
Yeah.
Some may just want that recognition, or some people just want to be, they're motivated by growth themselves, and like we need to invest in that. Um, so we've done lots of surveys and questionnaires, and we have a database of looking at our employees on an individual level and saying like, hey, like this person actually doesn't like their name in lights, right? Like we have a sales team, 90% of them want their big shiny names and
Oh
lights in
yes.
every town hall, and like we will 100% do that, but there's some people that like don't dare mention my name at a town
Yeah.
hall. So there's a quiet recognition that needs to be done for those individuals, and I think our leadership team has done a really good job at one, investing in training on those kind of nuances to leadership, into really understanding our employees and how they like to be motivated and how do they like to be appreciated. So we can kind of tailor that response to them. Some people, want to go out for lunch with their leader, other people don't. So like it's everybody is different, and knowing and understanding the differences within our teams and recognizing them and motivating them in the way that they prefer, I think is super important, and something that Brand Boulevard has done a really good job at investing in, and really pushing with our team and our leaders to understand the individuals on that team, right?
That's excellent. How about you, Len? So again, you have a foreman level, you have an executive level, you have a project management level. You have sort of different levels of leaders in your organization. What are you guys doing to specifically develop these people into stronger leaders, not just managers?
It's funny, Jill brought up the survey. We just presented yesterday to our team results of a survey that we did on exactly, how do you want to be recognized and what matters to you? What are you hoping to get out of this job? So, the results were, in some ways they were, what you expect, but there were things in there that really kind of popped out. It wasn't, obviously compensation is important, but different things really were almost on an equal level that
Hmm.
you didn't necessarily would call that before the survey. So you can see that people are, wanting more from their workplace than just a paycheck at the end of the week. So I think again, recognizing that and then taking action to kind of check all those boxes will help you, develop leaders in the long term. It's not just, immediate recognition, immediate compensation. You're doing something to plan for their long term to be here. So again, I go back to us investing in an HR person in this company, and the amount of work, the amount of focus that person puts towards identifying leaders and developing leaders. It just creates that. I think you had used an example of a company that had a university. That's almost what you want to do. You want to create a path for your new leaders to get on and help create that environment,
Yeah.
give them the tools to go, and then, as I mentioned before, you want to see initiative, but being able to get into that growth culture and build it, that's really exciting.
I do.
100%.
I also want to add to, like, one of the most important things that I know Chris does amazingly well here is that like it's okay to fail, right? Like is having that really encourages our leaders to have the autonomy to make decisions on what they feel is the right decision without being fearful of it failing and then getting in trouble for it, right?
Yeah.
I think our executive leadership team does a really good job at saying, make the decision. You guys have the autonomy to make the decision. It's okay if it doesn't work out because we learn from that. And I think from an executive leadership level, that is so important that those leaders that are managing the day-to-day and the bulk of our team have that ability to make those decisions on their own without
Yeah.
fear.
The failure and the mistake are wonderful if we learn from it.
Yes.
So that's the part that sometimes it's, and again, it can't be a catastrophic failure. It can be a calculated failure. I don't know if
Correct.
that's the
Yes.
right term, right? So it's, let's make mistakes because especially when you're learning something new, you should be making mistakes because you're
Hmm.
new at it. But making mistakes, but communicating what I'm learning from it while I'm going through, that builds that confidence.
Hmm.
And Len, we should give a shout out to John, your head of HR. He is doing a wonderful job.
Yes, for sure. And
Um,
further to
but
that, to Jill's point, I mean, we try to put people in a position where they can, it's an incremental movement towards leadership, I guess. It's not taking them and saying, okay, you've checked all the boxes here. We're going to put you in the role full on. We give them opportunities to fail small, I guess,
yeah,
and learn from that. And you can see growth and also appreciation. I think, people appreciate that they were given the opportunity, even if it didn't quite work out, the way they had hoped, that it wasn't catastrophic. They learned from it, and now they get to take the next step. And I think that, is a good path. It's good for your culture, and it also, lets people feel a little bit more comfortable than, oh my God, if I, the stress, if I screw this job up and it's worth $1 million and, you know, that's going to destroy my career. You don't want that situation. You want them to come along and then work towards that larger project that they're going to.
yeah, because they can become paralyzed by fear.
Hmm.
That
And you can't have that, right? We have to have people, Jill used the word autonomy. We have to have some clear expectations on what autonomy are. And the other thing too is it's really hard to hold people accountable. They can't make any decisions, So you have to give people that structure to say, I trust you, I believe in you, I think I've prepared you, I think I've trained you to make good decisions here. If it's if you're really unsure, come to see me. But you know what? We put you in this role for a reason. So let's get you moving that way.
I mean,
Uh,
yeah, and I was just gonna say too, even around I love that piece of like having the autonomy and not worrying too much, even with the engagement or the pulse surveys that you do, we're getting ready to do one as well. And often there can be some apprehension from leaders too, because they think, well, what happens if the results come back and they're not good? And I would say all of these things are to just check to see, like to evaluate how are we doing within our culture, right? And what are some of the opportunities? And I think that what's not working that comes through some of these engagement surveys are the most important things that we can do and respond to. And in a world where there's so much that we're trying to do as leaders and as organizations and institutions, it helps you focus in certain areas and it helps you help people feel heard so they continue to feel safe and talk about some of the challenges. So I think this is such an important piece. And I know with some of our engagement surveys, we've almost used them as a 180 leadership tool as well to help develop our leaders and say, like, no matter what shows up here, this isn't disciplinary, this is all in development, this is all growing, regardless of where you are on your leadership trajectory or career path. We all learn, right? Up until retirement, we're all learning and evolving as leaders too. And so it's just a neat opportunity when it comes from how do we put action around it? How do we respond to it? How do we communicate what we've heard? And just have a really strong follow-up and continue to evaluate to say, okay, is that working? Is what we've tried working? And if not, what else? What else can we be doing differently?
Yeah,
to try and respond to that, because I mean, a healthy team is a team that's also gonna stay with you through some of these challenging times as well, right? And do their best and go above and beyond and
100%.
trust in you as a leader as well.
So real quick, are you all doing, Len, was this a first time survey for you or have you done this in the past?
No, we've done surveys in the past, but this was a bit different in asking them what they wanted out of the job more so than how they're feeling. It's
Okay.
more specific to that.
Jill, do you do this annually or is this new to brand or?
We do it we do it twice a year. So we do one that's more of like a pulse survey and, ratings on how you feel. And then we do like a keep, stop, start. And that is the most telling, right? If you're seeing the same thing coming up from multiple people of things we should stop doing, we really need to pay attention to those.
Okay. And Susan, you're doing this annually as well or twice a year or?
Yeah, so interesting. It's been a few years since Facility Services has done an engagement survey. They have done it in the past. It's important to our leadership team as well that we continue to do it. When I first arrived about a year ago, we did a little bit of a, what's one thing that you love and what's one thing that we could do better? And we got really good feedback from the team on that. It's just like a quick check-in to start to introduce. We want to do more and more around the listening strategies. Today, we're ready to go out with a bit more of a pulse survey ahead of the university's more formal engagement survey, just to go, okay, we've tried some things, how are we doing? And even things as simple as like our recent training. I mean, I think we ended up around 70% of people giving us feedback. And so what we've been trying to do is go, okay, we're going to keep asking, but we're doing something. We're listening. We're changing. It's influencing. Your voice is influencing what we're doing here. And so we feel that we're ready now for a quick pulse to go, okay, are we getting it right? What else can we be doing and focusing on across the operation? And how else can we be supporting our leaders?
Excellent. So two more questions and I'll let everybody get back to your real jobs. I mentioned earlier that Gen Z, the newest folks in our workforce are I don't want to use the word afraid, but there is a fear factor there of they look at leaders and they think, I don't know if I want that. I don't know if I want that stress or that responsibility. First of all, are you seeing that in your business or your organization? And if you are, what are you doing to address that or work with people? Whoever wants to jump in on that.
I would say that you definitely see that, right? I think the younger generation likes to value that work-life balance a little bit more and love them for that, right? Like I wish I could do more of that, right? I wish I, had that kind of mindset sometimes. But yeah, we definitely see that. And I think it's just giving them little opportunities here and there to take on more of a leadership role, whether be it for a certain rollout or a certain process that we need to create or whatever it may be, is just, calling on them to take on more of a leadership role, maybe not permanently, but for a specific set of time or for a specific initiative that we're working on, just to kind of gauge if that's something that they want, because they may look at it and say like, oh, I don't want that. That's too stressful. But there's lots of leadership roles that they may be able to get into that is not that stressful. So I think giving them that opportunity and to take ownership and leadership on maybe certain projects gives them some insight that it's not all that bad. It's not all that stressful. It doesn't need to be that stressful. And just encouraging them as well that like that is a good quality for them to have to really value that because that's going to trickle down to their employees and their employees are just going to feel more grateful that their leadership really values that work-life
Yeah.
balance, right? And wants you to take care of yourself and prioritize yourself. And that's super, super important.
Len, do you have any thought on that? Do you have any of your leaders that are younger that are maybe apprehensive?
Um, yeah, I think, I mean, I don't know that I'm that close to people in the field that are apprehensive. I don't have that much exposure to them, but you know, I see people in the office, and then I mentioned my own son coming in.
Mm,
Um, you know, I'm not really seeing that. I see them being eager and looking for challenges. But I also see them realizing that there's more to it than they thought, right? You know, you come in and everybody's gonna, set the world on fire in 6 months. I'm gonna run this place, and the reality is that there's a lot there. There a lot of, devils in the details kind of thing. There's a lot of things to learn, and there's nuances to a job and people, and many different types of people there are. That's the style you're going to have to learn how to deal with those people. So, I think giving them the opportunity, like Jill said, giving them the opportunity to try things and see it, and kind of, you can't really tell them, it's going to take you more than 6 months to be fully up to speed on this job. It's going to take 2 years. Is really kind of, people don't want to hear that, and it's like, well, maybe I'm being held back in this organization. But if you let them experience it themselves and they come to their own realization that it's going to take a bit more time, I think, you're better off that way, and they're better off that way. I mean, you still keep giving them opportunities, and everybody's different. So some people will move faster along that career path, but I think giving them the chance to try and learn is.
And I will also say, to jump off of what Len was saying, is giving people a growth path. Not everybody's growth path is in leadership, right? So like if they can see like other roles or responsibilities or initiatives that they can take on, and they can still see that progression and that growth within their career, doesn't mean they need to be a VP or a manager or anything like that. They just want to see that growth path. And I think it's important that us as leaders clarify and show them what those paths are. It's not linear, right? There's
Yeah,
so many different ways that they can go, and we just need to do a good job at like showing our team the various growth paths that they have the opportunity to pursue.
great point. Susan, what about you for young leaders? Are you seeing any of that apprehension, or is it not
Yeah,
not real, not really happening?
yeah, no, I think it's fair to say that there's certainly some apprehension, and I guess for me too, it's like part of trying to build that resilience and that confidence, and to be okay not having all the answers, and to be in this gray, and for it to be safe to make mistakes, and all of the things that we've been talking about, I think is really important for them. I think for training too, I know you've helped Larry develop training for sort of all stages of leaders as well, those starting out and those experienced. And we're seeing a lot of programming like that here on campus as well, and having everybody think of themselves as a leader,
Right.
right? And having sort of that mindset, I think is really important. I also go regardless of whether you're new to leadership or whether you've been leading for 20 plus years. I think there's just great opportunity within mentorship to learn from each other, and to just know that we all bring different strengths, and how do we keep learning from each other to help build
Yeah.
confidence. For us in certain positions too, where we've had key roles where people are looking for retirement, we've also tried to be creative and think of opportunities like, how do we keep them on as a consultant for a
Right.
year, right? Give them a bit more flexibility that they're looking for, but really have the mentoring and sharing some of that expertise with some of the up and coming. And I think all these types of examples also help our leaders to go, okay, you know what, even if I take a chance, I'm going to be supported at the end of the day, right? I'm going to be supportive. It's also about just, again, these opportunities for community and connection. How do we build relationships? How do people have people within their network, internally, externally, that they can call for help and feel comfortable, and I mean, I call people all the time. I mean, I don't know how many calls I had out to you, Larry, of what do I do in this situation, or calls to others within the network
Yeah.
too, just to, you're not alone. And I think that's a big message for our up and coming leaders. We all um, should be leaders, and we should be learning and working with one another to be
Great
able to
points.
keep growing, right?
Great points. All right, last question. I've eaten up a lot of your time today, so my last question will start with you, Len. If you had to give really one piece of advice to a leader today, especially a new leader, what is that piece of advice you'd give them? Just like the one big nugget you'd love to impart to somebody.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Just one. I think it's, and this was brought up earlier. I think Jill used the word resilience. I think, you were gonna come into obstacles, you were gonna fail at certain things, but you can't let that kind of defeat you. You have to be able to push through. You have to, we have one of our core values is grit here, which is really resilience, is, you're in a contracting business, you're in the construction industry. This is not, this is not an easy industry to be in. And it's very competitive. You're battling to pull things together, different groups. You have subcontractors outside of your control. You're trying to, work against the weather, work against time, budget. So, you've got a lot of challenges. You have to have a good level of resilience and determination to push through those tough times and keep going.
That is a great piece of advice. Thank you. Susan, what's the one nugget you'd really love to give to a new leader?
I would probably just say stay curious. Stay curious, right? In these times, ask questions in the hardest of conversations. Go in it with a curious mind, to ask questions when you're having difficulty yourself navigating a situation. Use the coaching approach. You don't always have to have all the answers, right? You've got great people around you. Ask the questions, get the team's thoughts as well. Utilize the experts on your team and around you. And just stay curious, and stay with that sort of learning growth mindset yourself. And you can never go wrong there, no matter what shows itself.
Wonderful. Thank you. Jill, what do you got for us? What's your one big piece of advice for a new leader?
I would say to be vulnerable, right? Have that self-awareness of your strengths and your weaknesses and lean into the unknown a little bit. Know that some things are going to be uncomfortable and just be vulnerable about it. You're not going to have all the answers as a new leader, even as an experienced leader, you're not going to have all the
Yeah.
answers. And like for you to admit that to your team builds the humanity in yourself. And you need to show that you're human at the end of the day, right? You have fears yourself. You don't know all of the answers, and that's okay. And the more that your team is able to see you be vulnerable, the more they're going to be comfortable coming to you in their vulnerable moments. So I think that is super important as any leader at any stage is to have that transparency, that openness, and be a little bit more vulnerable with your teams.
Fantastic answer. Thank you. So, thank you all so much. This was such a good conversation. Great pearls of wisdom for everybody. I love the fact that no matter, even though you all have three very distinct businesses, you're going through a lot of the same things and you're facing some of the same challenges. And what you're doing is working because you all have very successful organizations. So thank you all so much for your time. So thank you, Susan. Thank you, Jill. And thank you, Len. And appreciate all of your time today.
Thanks, Larry.
Thank you.